Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tapas Talkies. I'm your host, Preeti Vikram, founder of Tapas Progressive Educational Institution. I'm absolutely excited to have with me today Caroline Essame. A warm welcome to you, Caroline. She is
Thank you.
a fantastic educator. She's been in the field of education for over 35 years, and she works predominantly with art and play, creative arts and play, and is an absolute dear friend of mine. So, she is an advisor on the board of Tapas, and we are lucky to have her guide us in this journey of experiential learning. Carolyn is the author of Developmental Play, and the hierarchy of developmental play guides occupational therapists across the world today. Carolyn, it's an honor to have you with us on Tapas Talkies.
Thank you. It's lovely to be with you as well, Preeti.
Great.
I'm very excited to see how tapas develops and impacts across India.
Yes. So today we'll attempt to capture some of your thoughts on developmental play, and we will also look at how the world is changing because of the kind of year we had the whole of last year. In fact, I was just mentioning that it's exactly a year later that we are talking about. A year ago, on this date is when India went into lockdown, and so the world has changed quite a lot since then. We will talk a little bit about what are the impacts and how can we help parents and children to come out of the impacts that they have faced. So first thing I'd like to ask you, Carolyn, is that a lot of emphasis is placed on academic success in our society, especially if you look at it, look at the Southeast Asia regions. A lot of it is placed on academic success. Do you believe that this leads to a tunnel vision of undermining the importance of, say, emotional well-being of children? What's your take?
Well, it's a very interesting question, Preeti, and one that takes me back many, many years, actually, when I studied my first training in occupational therapy in Oxford. Now, I'm sure everyone across the world is familiar with the very prestigious University of Oxford. And having grown up in Britain myself, it was creme de la creme if you got into Oxford. Now, when I was doing my clinical practice, and it was in 1984, so it does take you back quite far, but I remember finding out that more top firsts that year were taken on the psychiatric unit than in the exam halls. And I remember being horrified that the cost of academic success for often very brilliant and gifted young people meant they had massive stress that often precipitated mental health problems. And I've never forgotten that. And working here in Asia, I'm based in Singapore and have been for the last 20 years, I often say to parents, at what cost A Stars and Oxbridge? And I have a lot of friends who trained at Oxford and Cambridge, and we often talk about the pressure of academia on young people. And I think even more so now in the 21st century, when there's so much pressure on resources and on jobs, and the need to excel in education puts incredible pressure on our young. But when I talk to parents, I often say, would you be prepared to sacrifice the happiness and well-being of your child for that top qualification? And I've never yet had a parent say yes.
Right.
And I think in our heart of hearts, as parents and as educators, we believe that education should be about developing the whole person. And I think no time is that more pertinent than now, post-COVID, where in most societies across the world have been laid bare. Businesses is going under, people haven't been at school, and the big question is what matters? And I think one of the things we've most been struck with is that resilience matters, relationships matter, flexibility matters, things that are not examined. So I think there's a whole evolution and revolution happening in education at this very moment that looks at what should education be for.
Absolutely.
Um,
I so agree with
does that answer your question?
it does, absolutely, yes. I think I came across the World Bank report, which talks about the skills that are required for employability, top employable skills, right? And so the top four skills, and which are now classified as the skills for the 21st century skills, so-called four C's, are collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and what was the fourth one? So I think it's communication, right? So these four skills are top four, and World Bank rated subject matter expertise, which is nothing but your academic knowledge, as the 19th skill required for employability. So if parents are fearful of what job my child's going to do in the future, I think they needn't worry about academics being a feeder for that job. So you're perfectly right. Thank you so much. That was, I think, brilliantly phrased by you, Caroline. So that means that there's a natural segue for me to ask you the next question, which is, at Tapas, we stress a lot on play-based learning, and ensuring that creative arts is part of the curriculum and that is not treated as extracurricular. How big of a role do you believe play has in the emotional development of the child?
I think in the emotional development of the child, it is absolutely imperative and huge. And I think we understand, if we look neurobiologically, we have left brain learning and right brain learning. It's actually far more sophisticated than that, because it's neuron pathways crossing across the brain and coming in through the hindbrain and everything, and all connecting. But we do know that there are strong domains. Now, traditionally, a lot of learning has focused on left brain learning. And this is all higher education, it's language, it's the 3 R's, as we call them, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now, it often makes me laugh when we talk about reading, writing, and arithmetic, because whoever came up with the idea of the 3 R's, I think, struggled with spelling, because it's actually writing, arithmetic, and reading. And I believe it's actually WAR, which for me spells war. And I think we do war on right side brain processing, on intuition, sensing, feeling, the visual system, a lot of the skills that underpin emotional learning. And actually, what we want in education is whole brain learning. And I think we're beginning to have some exciting research coming out of education that looks at brain-based learning. I did a module in my master's in education in brain-based learning, which was for me a bit of an odd phrase, because surely that's where all learning happens. But the fact that we have to look at how does the brain learn, to think about how we should be teaching. And I think traditionally, or actually no more in the last, since the sort of industrial revolution and the way we've phrased education in the last 50 years, we've looked so much, maybe it's 100 years actually when I think about it, but we've looked so much at left brain learning. And we haven't looked at those 4 C's. Those 4 C's are all hardwired through the limbic system and through the right brain processing. So right. I think, again, we go back to this revolution in education that has potential in the 21st century to actually look at how children learn in the best way to build healthy, adaptable, flexible, whole brains to reach their full potential. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that children best learn on their feet and not on their seat. So it is important that children get moving and they learn through play. So I think that's the only way, like you mentioned, the whole brain is activated if children are using all of these senses. So perfectly, that answered.
And I think that also ties in with what we call sensory processing and the importance of learning through our bodies. I like what you said about we learn on your feet, not on your seat.
Right.
I mean, I took it a little bit further, and I think, what made us think we learn best sitting on our bottoms? That's the new brain.
Right.
And it doesn't work like that. Children learn through moving, singing, seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, exploring. And as an occupational therapist, we look a lot at what we call sensory integration and how children learn through all their senses. And I work a lot with children who learn differently, and I see the power of harnessing all the senses to work together to improve their learning. The principles are the same with neurotypical children, that the more we engage their senses, the more we're going to enhance learning. And the arts and play are where your senses are most engaged.
Absolutely.
So,
So, I mean, I'm just excited to see how children are going to be taking up the arts and play at Tapas. And I think this journey is going to be so interesting because children will actually use all of their senses, like you said. They are going to be doing more than just sitting. And then 2 days ago, I heard at another conference that sitting is the new smoking. And so I don't understand why we have to put our children through it, you know?
yeah,
Full
yeah,
day. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Sitting is new smoking. And then we can add dancing is the new feeling. Painting is the um, new technology. I don't know, the new, I don't, oh, we could think of some nice things there, I think. Get
Yes,
the children on it, they'll have ideas.
yes, absolutely. So, do you believe that schools are doing enough for factoring in emotional development for a child in their pedagogy, in the way they are currently teaching children? So, and do you think there can be more that schools can do?
I think there's always more that schools can do. Um, interesting, I was asked a few years ago, so I have a training in occupational therapy, a training in art therapy, but then I decided to do my further studies in education. And a headmaster of a very successful school here in Singapore said to me, "So Caroline, are you thinking of having a third profession?" And I said, I don't, I haven't got time to be a teacher as well, but I feel teachers in this day and age need to know everything that I've learned as a clinician. And I always feel hopefully every child can have some kind of education that's good enough. Heaven forbid that every child has to see a therapist. Um, and that's why I did my master's in education, because I saw the transformative nature of creativity, the transformative healing, and also preventative nature of play and creativity. And I felt to make schools reach the potential they have, we needed to embed that into the teachers. I'm mindful though, and my sister's a teacher, and she took me to task on this at one point, and she said, um, teachers are now expected to do everything. They're expected to be the nurturer, the creator. There's, the skills they're expected to have, and we were reflecting on this, and saw that in many ways it ties into massive urbanization, the breakdown of community, the financial needs for um, both parents to work, nuclear families emerging rather than extended families. So there's so much pressure on teachers. And I always, when I talk about education, don't want to further that pressure for teachers. But I want to acknowledge that teachers, I believe, are some of the most important um, professions in the world now, with the industrialization we live in, with the breakdown of small village communities where, if parents were working, grandma was there, everyone knew each other, there was lots of nurture. That's been taken away, and often teachers are that one constant person in a child's life, which puts huge responsibility and huge pressure on teachers. And part of my work is trying to empower teachers to reach that potential, but also get them the recognition for the incredible jobs that they do and the responsibility they hold.
So beautifully put, Caroline. You're right. I think the teaching community is not given enough credit for what they do and the kind of impact that they have on our children. And then we pile on more and more pressure of the standardized testing, and we put on more pressure of the responsibilities that they're given at school. And you're right, I think it's time to build a community, and like what we're doing at Tapas is have the community also contribute. We are having master classes by different individuals, which takes the pressure off the teacher for a little while. But just reflecting on what you said about how education it can be a little better, I think there has to be a systemic change. I also believe that unless there is that kind of a change which permeates through all the levels of education, putting the entire onus of it on the teacher might not be the best way forward. You're right. I completely agree with that. Brilliant. So, what do you believe are the short term and long term benefits of play? So, I've always come across this stereotype, and I would love to break that stereotype that play is for younger children, and as children grow older, they should be doing more structured learning. So, just to hear from you, what are the short term and long term benefits of play, and your thoughts, please?
One thought, I have a little quote on my desk here. Um, I'll see if I can read it to you, or maybe I can put it up. I don't know if you can read it here. That we don't grow old. No, what is it?
Let me read
We
it.
don't stop. Yeah, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.
Wow.
And I have that on my desk because in many ways it's my mantra. And I think if we think of play as whole brain experimentation and expression, it's moving, it's seeing, it's responding, it's exploring, it's experimenting, it's feeling, it's sensing. It's so many things. To me, it's about being fully alive. We also know that when people play, they have immense joy and sense of volition, and go into what we call in occupational therapy this sense of flow, being completely absorbed. And in many ways, it is the optimum function of the human brain when we play. Now, we want that across our lifespan. And if we want children to learn, we want to engage them with that kind of intensity.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure, we're very familiar of sitting in classes where you're half asleep. The brain is not learning.
True.
But one of my favorite subjects always at school was drama, because I was on the move. Everything felt alive. And you can learn amazing concepts through that. In one of the schools here, they teach Chinese Pinoy in the gym. So children run with the movements of the Chinese letters. And I thought that was inspired because it's looking at engaging the body and the mind in joyful playfulness to teach something that's very other for the culture of the children who are learning it. But I thought that was a really inspired example of playful learning,
right?
Because it was engaging, body movement, space, visualization while on the move.
Absolutely.
So I don't think it's age specific at all.
Great. I believe so too. And one of the things, what you just said reminded me of one of the lessons we've written at Tapas, which is if you want children to learn mean, median, and mode, the lesson is that teachers will get the children to line up as per their date of birth. And so once they've lined up, then with them standing and with them moving, we do the mean, median, and mode calculations. So it's just an easier way for children to internalize the learning. And I think, like we discussed earlier, a lot more number of the senses are at work when the child is moving and not just sitting. So, and it's extremely important also, I believe, in today's day and age. And I think you would agree with this that as children are growing older and older, the number of opportunities for immersing themselves in physical activities are coming down unless they are actively participating in a sport, because the recess hour that is given in a school or the structured sports activities that is given in a school typically is not sufficient for that child's the requirement of that child. for movement. So, what is your take on that?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I think there's so much interesting and often tragic research about um, us not getting enough movement, also about not getting enough daylight.
Right.
There was an interesting research done here in Singapore about myopia, so short sightedness. And they've just introduced outdoor play for all primary children and preschool children for an hour and a half a day, because it's been realized that if you don't get enough daylight, you become short sighted. Now, this is great for opticians, but you don't really want to be wearing glasses from very early in your life. So we need to get outside, we need to move. We're looking at a lot more obesity related illnesses later in life because we're not active. We're all on screens all the time, where we're using our periphery nervous systems, but not our central nervous systems. And so we've got lots of people with undeveloped core strength because they're not moving enough on uneven surfaces. I think the implications of bringing movement back in for well-being and learning are huge. Because if you leave it to get fit till you're after school age, you've hardwired to be unfit because you've been sitting and inactive all the time. Movement is imperative. And also just thinking about the last year, we're looking at the increased level of anxiety, ill health, and weight gain, immobility, all linked to being contained at home, lots of time on Zoom. And the implications for well-being and health and learning from there are going to be huge. And there's a big cry now for get children out, any children, get adults out, play, move, get out in nature, um, build that resilience and that well-being. And interesting, I mean, I think so many children, all they've had is a computer to learn through. In the Philippines, for the whole year, children haven't been at school for a year. And how do you support that loss of childhood and that loss of playfulness? You just play more, give them lots more opportunities as soon as they can.
Right.
I think I'm going, there's so many things we want to discuss. I keep going off on tangents, so pull me back if you need to.
That was really brilliant. I think you cannot stress enough on the importance of going out in nature and playing. And I really like what you said about having more sunlight and being exposed to more sunlight. You'll be happy to know that every environment at Tapas has a bit of an indoor and an outdoor, and the child can choose to sit either out in the sun and do their work or come back indoors. So I think we're on the right track somewhere.
Lovely, lovely. I really look forward to seeing it.
Absolutely. So, what do you think is the role of other stakeholders like the parents and the siblings and maybe extended family um, in order to play and ensure that the child's well-being is taken care of? What do you think are some of the ways that we can support them, and what can other stakeholders do?
Well, I think one of the key things is to create playful systems.
Mhm.
And I think, depending on the age of parents, a lot of them didn't get the chance to play when they were young.
Right.
And if you haven't done it, you don't believe it. Once you've experienced it, you're going to believe it more. So you're able to support your child if that's how they're learning. So I spend a lot of time in my work educating and supporting parents to reconnect with their playfulness so they are aware in themselves how wonderful it feels and what joy it brings and how they learn better. And then they're much more able to support their children. I also think playful opportunities where communities can come together and do intergenerational play, it brings a culture of playfulness, well-being, creativity. There's a lovely quote about, those who play together stay together. It's the sort of pre-verbal language of relationships is play. And I think, a movement never happens in isolation. So and I know that Tapas is looking not just at the school, but at the whole community.
Yes.
And I think the more opportunities you give for the community to understand it, the more potential the school has to grow.
And I absolutely loved the resource that CreateCATT came out with, which was the play at home, stay at home, 30 activities for us to do at home. And it came at the right time when most of the world was going into lockdown. And it's so interesting that you were also able to translate it into so many languages, make play more available to more number of people. I think that's a fantastic resource that you've created. So kudos.
Thank you. 14 languages today. I published Urdu today. I don't know if you saw it,
Oh,
with
okay.
many thanks to friends of ours from Pakistan. So they've translated it into Urdu. So we're doing, we're getting, spreading the word, and together we can have, isn't it?
Brilliant, brilliant. Super. So I think I know that we've taken quite a lot of your time. We've connected over quite a few topics, and between you and me, I know that we can go on for a long time about these topics, and these are really close to us. So I'd like to thank you for the time that you've spent with us, and I'm sure we will have a lot more interesting conversations going forward. So thank you, Carolyn, for sharing your thoughts. We will be in touch, and we will look forward to having more such interactions with you. Thank you so much for being on Tapas Talkies.
Thank you. Thank you. And hope to be there in person with the community one day soon.
Yes, we do look forward to that. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carolyn. Take care. Bye bye.